the vertical line and fails the vertical line test. Probably should have capitalized that, but oh well. Alright, so like I said, if you just drew a vertical line through that vertical line, it crosses it everywhere. Alright, any questions on that one? Alright, so that's one of those, say, you can't call it a trick problem, but it can be a little tricky. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to go to the function notation, which is why I didn't want to move ahead faster than I already did. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you have y equals 7x plus 5, or any number at all. Okay, what this says is that y is a function of x. Okay, where y is just pretty much relying on x values. Okay, you plug in an x value, you get your y value. You plug in x value, you get a y value. So y is, they call a function of x. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll just let y equals f of x, where both of these just mean function of x. Okay. So that y equals 7x plus 5, you just write it as f of x equals 7x plus 5. Okay, and that just reads f of x, or function of x. All right, but you'll hear f of x more often. All right, so if you wanted to write your ordered pair, x comma y, you can write it as a function of x, x comma f of x. Okay, means the exact same thing, just different notation. All right, so let's say, for example, you want to find each function value. Okay, so let's say for problem A, if f of x equals 3x minus 2, find f of 1 and f of 0. Okay, so if you remember when you had this here, you would always say, okay, if x equals 1, y equals this. If x equals 2, y equals that. If x equals 3, y equals that. This is the exact same thing. The only difference is you just put your 0, 1, and 2 right in there. And that tells you to replace every x with that value. Okay, so we'll do that, but we'll write down two of them. So if g of x equals 7x squared minus 3x plus 1, find g of 1 and say g of a. Okay, Sometimes you'll get just variable changes. Okay, so if we have, for A, f of x equals 3x minus 2. Okay, so if you have f of 1, that literally just means replace every x with 1. Okay, that's 3 times 1 minus 2. Okay, so 3 times 1 is 3, minus 2 is 1. That means that f of 1 is equal to 1. Okay, so if we want to find, since we're running a little bit out of paper here, I'll just put f of 0 over here. Okay, so we have f of 1. So if you have f of 0, that literally just means replace every x with 0. Okay, so that's going to equal 3 times 0 minus 2, which is negative 2. So we know that f of 0 equals negative 2. Okay, so instead of just randomly going x equals 0, x equals 1, x equals 2, when you see f of 1, they're telling you plug in x equals 1. When you see f of 0, they're telling you plug in x equals 0. So it's just another way of saying it. All right. Any questions on that one? Yes.
Do you have to write it out like that, or can you write it as ordered pairings?
Depends on how they ask you to answer it. If they just say what is the value of f of 0, then you just write f of 0 equals whatever. But if they say write it as an ordered pair, then you'd write it as 1 comma 1, or you can write this one as 0 comma negative 2. I said it all depends on how they ask you to answer it. All right. Okay. Any other questions on this one? All right, so we'll go to B and kind of separate that a little bit. And I'll move a little further over to the left. Okay, so we know g of x is equal to 7x squared minus 3x plus 1. So when you have g of 1, once again, it's just replace every x with 1. Replace every x with 1. Okay, so that's going to equal 7 times 1 squared minus 3 times 1 plus 1. Okay. Kind of block that off a little bit. So that means your g of 1 is going to equal 7. Well, 1 squared is just 1. So you have 7 minus 3, which is 4, plus 1 is 5. So g of 1 is equal to 5. Okay, which gives you the order pair 1, 5. Okay. Now if we want to find g of a, it literally just means replace every x with an a. Okay, so that means you have 7a squared minus 3a plus 1. Okay, so you don't have to do anything else to that one. When they ask you to just plug in for a variable, that's literally all you're doing. All right, any questions on that one? All right. So we'll do a couple more examples of that one. so let's say if you have, excuse me, let's say for the function, say n of y, that could change to anything. That could be f, that could be g, that could be h, that could be uppercase n, lowercase r, uppercase r, means the exact same thing. So when you see that change, it literally could be any capital or lowercase letter. So let's say that's 4 times the absolute value of 3y minus 8 minus 4. Comma. Let's say if you want you to find n of y plus n of 1. All right. Okay. So the first thing you have to do is find n of y and n of 1 and add them together. Okay. So you already know n of y because they gave it to us. Okay. So our n of y is 4 times the absolute value of 3y minus 8 minus 4. Okay, so we have that part of it. And your n of 1, you're just replacing every y with 1. So whatever variable's in here, that's the one you're going to replace. So if this would have been n of t equals 4 times 3t minus 8, this is going to tell you replace every t, or replace every j, or whatever variable happens to be in here. Okay, so n of 1, replace every y with 1. Okay, so that's going to equal 4 times the absolute value of 3 times 1 minus 8 minus 4. Okay, which is going to equal, I'll put it underneath it. Sometimes that's a little less confusing. Kind of box that out. Okay, so that's going to equal 4. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 8 is negative 5. So 4 times the absolute value of negative 5 minus 4. Okay, so we know the absolute value of any number is going to be positive. So the absolute value of negative 5 is positive 5. So 4 times 5 minus 4. So you have 20 minus 4, which is 16. Okay, so we know that n of 1 equals 16. Okay, so now we just add those two together. Kind of separate that a little bit. So n of y plus n of 1 just becomes 4 times the absolute value of 3y minus 8 minus 4 plus your n of 1, which is 16. Okay, so you have all of that plus that. Okay, any questions on this so far? All right, the ones you have like that, you just combine all the terms you can. So really the only two you can combine are those two. Everything else is kind of jumbled in something else. Okay, so you have 4 times, move that up some, the absolute value of 3y minus 8 minus 4 plus 16 is plus 12. All right, so any questions on that one? All right. Okay, so let's try one more. I'll leave this up for a few seconds. so let's say, for example, for the function, say capital F of x equals 2 times the absolute value of 5x minus 1 plus 2. Evaluate f of x plus 1. Okay, so that x plus f of x plus 1, even though it's something different, it means the exact same thing. Replace every x with x plus 1. Okay, so whatever's in there, that's all you're going to do is replace x with whatever's in there. Even if it's a variable, if it's a number, doesn't matter. If it's in there, that's when you're going to replace your x value with. Okay. So f of x plus 1 is just going to equal 2 times the absolute value of 5, and instead of x, x plus 1 minus 1 plus 2. Okay. And then you just simplify it from there. Okay. So that's going to equal 2 times absolute value, and we'll go ahead and distribute that 5. So you have 5x plus 5 minus 1 plus 2. Okay. And then we just combine our like terms from there. So you have 2 times the absolute value of 5x. 5 minus 1 is 4. Plus 2. Okay, so you can't really simplify that anymore, so we know our f of x plus 1 is equal to 2 times the absolute value of 5x plus 4 plus 2. All right, any questions on that one? Yes.
Is that always going to be an absolute value?
Oh no, just happen to be, this is probably the most complicated one you'll see. Okay, sometimes it'll just be a regular polynomial. All right, any other questions? All right. Let me see. Yeah, I think we'll stop there.